Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. It is a game of just under an hour, and in the left-hand corner, we have, weighing in at 6 stone ringing wet, they call him the Kent Crusader, Mr. Adrian Lacey. And in the blue corner, coming in at 19 stone in his underpants, but they are very heavy underpants, they call him the Midlands Marauder, Mr. Shane O'Connor. Gentlemen, choose your weapons.
Should I read something into the fact that I'm wearing red and you're wearing blue? Is that a political statement?
I never noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, you're not conscious, are you?
My kind of gets white towards the bottom, so does that mean I'm a bit cowardly when I get near my bottom?
Are you lifting up your shorts? I'm not quite sure what I'm seeing. Fortunately, dear listener, you don't have to see what I have to see on Skype. If you could see what I can see
when I'm Skyping Shane.
Sorry, we are mostly sober.
Yes, although you probably wouldn't notice it from that. Anyway, yes, this is the Comedy Slab podcast. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. It is Shane O'Connor and Adrian Lacey. If you've not heard it before, we pick a comedy. We do it alternate weeks. I pick one week, he picks the next week, and we chat about it. We play a few clips from it, 3 clips in actual fact, and we decide whether we like or no like. And I think it's no more than that, is it really? I was going to say we decide whether we think it's good or not, but I think it's more subjective, isn't it? It's more of a like or no like, really, I suppose. But it was my turn to choose last week, and I chose a radio comedy that I hadn't heard. I'll be honest with you, it's quite an oldie. I hadn't heard it for a few years, I don't think, really. It was a thing called Brian Gulliver's Travels, and it was conceived and written by a guy called Bill Dare. More of him a little bit later on. Before we do anything else, are we doing I've actually got a headline, because you always badger me get a headline. I've got one this week.
Yeah, aren't I meant to have the headline?
Yeah,
since you suggested it. In which case, I don't care about your headline. It's not part of the game.
It makes it even
do
worse.
I look bothered?
Oh, okay.
Oh, come on, let's have your headline first. Then we'll play one of 3 audio clips. Do I have to explain on your show?
I said that.
Did you?
I've already said all that, yeah.
So I zoned out.
Sorry, before we go on, I just going to mention as well, because you sent me a really interesting thing in the week, which was, although it was from The Guardian, so it wasn't that interesting.
Your reaction's interesting, but carry on.
No, it was this list of... Well, you explain it, because it was your list. What was it a list of?
Yeah, good question. Well, here's the thing. I saw it in its newsprint form. For our younger listeners, that's sort of squashed trees, which they put ink on, but it doesn't matter right now. And the version I was looking at was only a top 20 best comedians of the century so far, or words to that effect. And then imagine my shock when I realised I've been shortchanged as someone with print all over my fingers, and there's another 30 online. So it's the top 50. And to be brutally honest, I haven't looked at 30 to 50.
Right.
Because I wasn't expecting that.
I think 50 is a lot to take in anyway, isn't it, really? But
it's a heck of a lot.
Isn't it? And I'm not saying this because it's The Guardian, but in all seriousness, I mean this. Isn't it a bit of a twee list to write? The best comedian, because I mean, I've just said comedy is such a subjective thing. What one man finds funny, and another person next to them doesn't find funny, and vice versa. And I just kind of think, what if I wrote a list of my 5? They're not the best. They're your favourites, aren't they? I suppose. Don't you think? Is that fair to say?
Were you ever allowed to play as a child? Where you could have fun.
Well, I could, but within certain parameters.
Yeah. Well, you should loosen off your parameters, mate. Listen, they're all gerrymandered. They're all completely fabricated, and they all reflect the view either of the editorial board of the newspaper or of the comedy writers for said newspaper. And you can bet your bottom dollar, if you've been a comedy writer for a newspaper for longer, you will have more say, because people will defer to you if they're freelance and might not be back next week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's complete. But it doesn't mean the people on the list are rubbish. In fact, there's loads I agree with. There's loads of people would agree with. I think.
But that's why I say it's a bit worthless, really, isn't it, as a list? Because it's like there'll be loads that you agree with, the ones that you don't agree with. It's like it doesn't really make sense in that sense to me. That you go, oh, it's the best. These are the ones who are. I mean, if you did a list of the most prolific comedians, or the ones hardest working, or I don't know. I just, and then because you end up with a mishmash. I mean, well, they end up with Steve Coogan at number 2 and Tina Fey at number 1, which you kind of think on Steve Coogan's body of work now, with like not only his TV stuff but all his film stuff as well. He's prolific, isn't he?
You're saying he's not prolific enough?
Yeah, well, why isn't he number 1 is what I'm saying. I'm sure he beats Tina Fey hands down, doesn't he? Is what I was thinking. But
well, the other thing is, I half interpreted, which is wrong, but I half interpreted it as stand-ups.
Oh, yeah.
When I just read the title, because I'm always interested in that, but it's not. So then you get into really comedy actors, and then Tina Fey writes as well.
Well, and then a program is actually in the list as well, isn't it? I think somewhere I read.
Yeah, they break their own rules, don't they? It's not that consistent. But I enjoyed reading it, and I thought you'd like the thing that became the clincher for me to send it to you, Shane.
Yeah,
and I thought we could bounce it around, but I had no idea it was such a serious academic exercise with so many intellectual flaws in it, so I can only apologise.
Well, no,
but
just one, really. There aren't so many. There's just one that it's rubbish list. Go on.
That it exists at all. Yeah, but you can't object to your mate Tim Key, oft mentioned on the Comedy Slab, being in the top 20, certainly.
Number 9, 10, isn't it? I think it is.
Number 9, yeah, so top 10.
Number 9, Tim Key. This is the worst game of bingo I've ever played.
Well, for all our Beatles fans, you're treading not very softly on our dreams.
2 and 9, Aziz Ansari.
2 and 9, bus ride to Out of Here.
22, Sacha Baron Cohen.
Surely you've got to give it some credence for Tim Key.
I do give it some credence, and don't call me Shirley.
Hey.
But no, that proves my point, doesn't it? Because there's somebody I like in the top 10 doesn't make it a good list.
Well, I thought it would redeem it. Obviously, I had no idea just how bitter and twisted you've become.
No, not at all. Look at me, I'm happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, well, I'll be happy if you go.
Lucky.
What about Sharon Horgan? Come on, we slabbed This Way Up the other week. I know Aisling Bea is the writer and lead, but come on.
If I had to choose between the two, I'd rather see Sharon Horgan's work, actually, because I like. Well, she's done more for a start, really, but she's done more of her own vehicles, hasn't she? But yeah, I mean, what are we saying? Yeah, I like Sharon Horgan, but that still doesn't do anything for me with the list.
Oh dear!
It's like, I've made a list of my favourite colours. Come on, you like red. This is a great list.
Oh dear God! It gives you an excuse to read about them, though. But clearly, you've got no notion of fun, which is somehow I think you're miscast on this podcast.
I don't need an excuse to read about them. I'll just go and read about them, just willy-nilly. That's the kind of guy I am. You're
Willy, I'm Nilly.
Nilly vanilly.
So we're faking it.
Anyway, Saucy, give me a headline.
No, you don't get your headline until after the first clip. You know the rules.
Oh, right.
Read it in your contract.
It's in the small print in your contract. All right, what can I tell you about Brian Gulliver's travels? Brian Gulliver is, or was, I suppose, because he hasn't done it for a while, a seasoned travel documentary presenter. And all we know about him is that he is in some kind of closed unit, I think is probably the best way to describe it. I think probably you get more of it in the first series, don't you, than you do in the second series, because the doctor comes around and does his wards, and basically
you're saying it like I've heard the first series.
Yeah, I forgot you hadn't, had you? This is an episode from the second series, isn't it? There were only 2 series, but this is an episode from the second series. But he's in like a hospital stroke clinic kind of place, and he meets regularly with his daughter and tells her about all these lands that he's visited. He'd been missing for, I think it was it 6 years or 6 months? I can't remember.
6 years, I think I read.
I think, yeah, it said in the blurb that he'd been missing for, I don't think they actually made reference to that, but he'd been missing for 6 years. And he's come back with all these stories of all these wonderful lands that he's been to. And each episode is about the different land that he's been to. And each episode does kind of start in the same way. And I thought, well, it'd be nice. I've actually clipped the music out of this just because it's the theme music, which is very short, does plop right in the middle of this particular clip. But I thought it was quite a good one to start with because it sets the scene and gives you an idea from where we came to it. In as much as Brian Gulliver is he's on the phone from the hospital stroke clinic that he's staying in, talking to his daughter.
Hello, Dad.
Hello. There are a couple of things I'd like you to bring, if you would.
Hard, soft or goat?
No, I'm all right for cheese, thanks. I'd like a book of poetry, any anthology will do, and some pushpins.
Pushpins? What are pushpins?
Well, that's another thing I'd like you to do. Find out what pushpins are, then get some.
How many?
Enough to play a game of pushpin. And don't ask me how to play pushpin.
Okay, some pushpins, but you don't know what they are for a game called pushpin that you don't know how to play.
And the poetry.
Okay, Dad.
I'm winning.
Since we don't even know the rules, that hardly seems fair, and why are we playing it?
The great English philosopher John Stuart Mill. Pushpins as good as poetry. He was paraphrasing Jeremy Bentham. The game of pushpin is of equal value with music and poetry.
I should think it's better than a lot of poetry. So this all relates to...
A place called Lessington.
Lessington sounds English.
Actually, it was Lessington-on-Sea. I'd been walking through a desert for several days, having escaped from the Harmaginians, the laziest people I've ever come across. They had 1,000 different words for afternoon nap.
And you wanted to escape?
Rest has no meaning without toil, Rachel. After 2 days in the desert, I came to a road.
That reminded me of the song, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name, but that's neither here nor there. I got slightly confused when you sent me the clips, as we sort of share these clips. If it's your choice, you send them to me, and if it's my choice, I send them to you. And on them it said BGT. I got all excited. I thought we were going to do Britain's Got Talent, but no, it's Brian Gulliver's Travels. Right, headline, Lessington is more. See what I did there?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Although, I have to say...
Can I tell you what my headline was? Lessington is Moorington.
I don't believe you.
It's here, look. Look.
Oh, hold it up.
Yeah, look, can you see that?
I can't, but I'm going to believe you. Like
Okay.
a fool. You could send me a screen grab.
Okay, I will.
But then our listeners won't believe either of us, and nor should they. No, they should. Okay, well, that proves is what frighteningly unoriginal minds we have. No, what similar gags we do. Well, you chose it, so the way you chose it, I suppose it's not always true that you like what you choose. Sometimes you put something on the slab for the next week's show that you've never heard or seen. So that's a gamble. But you positively chose this, didn't you?
I did, but I didn't choose it because I liked it. I chose it because I wanted to know what you would think of it, because I kind of thought that this would appeal to you because, I mean, I think this falls very much into the category of clever writing. Would you agree with that? Yeah,
and it's very wordy, but wordy in a good way if you like your words, as we both do.
Yeah.
As wordsmiths.
Because we've had this before. I can't remember a particular instance where we said, it was like kind of really wordy and really hard to absorb. But for some reason, Bill Dare writes this in a way that it is very intelligent, very articulate and very wordy and very clever as well. I have to say some of the plot points and the way that he kind of moves things around and it comes back to the original point and he does all that. But it is in a kind of, I don't know how he does it, but it always ends up being very accessible.
Yes, but what I was going to say was for the first 10 minutes, I was like the archetypal person in the first few rows of a comedy gig with their arms folded and sitting there stony-faced, every comedian's nightmare.
Why?
And to me, it sounded like an AI, artificial intelligence, as opposed to artificial insemination, version of what came out of a Radio 4 focus group. It just sounded like calculated all right, okay, this bloke is going to appeal to our 55 plus listening audience. But that was very unkind. And that was, again, I must have been in a foul mood to begin with. But then I cheered up no end, because I just, when you get your first laugh out loud moment. But because it is so wordy, it does require your concentration, doesn't it? You couldn't have it background on a long journey or something and, just be talking over it and expect to sort of half follow it and pick it up a bit later on.
It's your washing up analogy again, isn't it? When you say sometimes you listen to Radio 4 comedies while you're doing the washing up in the evening, and if you're clanging the pots about and you miss a plot point, which you could do, then you're right. I don't think it'd be. I think it is one that it's interesting because actually, I when I listen to it on headphones, which I don't always do, but I kind of like if I'm having problems concentrating on it, I'll very often do that. But I did this for no other reason than I was doing it in the room and didn't want to wake anybody, and I kind of just thought. Actually, this is the first time I've listened to it on headphones, and it has a nice feel to it as well. It has a nice sound to it as well. I don't know if it's to do with Neil Pearson's voice because he's got a very relaxing voice, hasn't he? It's very kind of.
Well, that we get to one of my criticisms, but also one of my confessions, which is that I haven't read Gulliver's Travels, and I should do. I felt he was underplaying it, I mean, you can say there is a school of acting that doesn't draw attention to itself, that people might say, well, he's not even acting, to which the answer might be, well, that's precisely the point. Or at least I am acting, but I'm acting in such a way that you think I'm not. It's so naturalistic. I just felt I didn't quite, in that phrase, lift off the page for me. And also, I think his daughter... bit of a similar, I'm loath to call it a criticism, but maybe observation would be slightly kinder.
See, I really like that. I like them to be that side of the line. And I thought, I think it was Joe Bobbin who played Cheryl.
Oh, yeah.
Who, again, could have been the other side of the line, over the top. I don't think she'd... I don't wonder if it is a direction, that they said, okay, we want it all... Play this side of the line rather than over the top, the other side of the line. I don't know. Have you seen Neil Pearson in other stuff? Do you remember him from Drop the Dead Donkey? And he used to be one of my favourite cop shows I think it was in the 90s, called Between the Lines. With Siobhan Redmond? Did you ever see him in that?
No, I have seen him in other things, but not much. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he go into writing? Because I'm sure I've seen a West End play by him.
I think I have.
Comedy.
He produced he produced a program called The Missing Hancocks, didn't he? I think where he
right
were they. I think what they're doing on Gold with Dad's Army at the moment. They're reproducing the missing episodes. I think it was that kind of thing that he did. He got that. He produced that. I'm not sure about his writing credits as well, but. Yeah, I mean, he was years ago. I mean, Drop the Dead Donkey was a milestone in comedy, wasn't it? Because they were one of the first to put into a sitcom things that had happened within the previous 24 hours and write them into the script. I think they were one of the first to do that, weren't they?
Yeah, we recalled that when we were slabbing Lobbyland recently.
That's right.
They have some topical stuff, although as it turned out, the episode we slabbed didn't seem so topical after all.
They're just two references to the football match that was on the Saturday, the day after they went out.
And which, of course, went over my head.
Yeah.
We shouldn't really talk about football on a day when it turns out Watford got thrashed 8-0 by Man City. I know nothing about football, except that's not particularly good. If you're Watford.
In fairness, Man City are just going around the country doing that to various people now. So I mean, 8-0 is the word. I think they beat somebody 5-0 the other week. So
didn't they beat Watford earlier in the year 6-0? So there is a pattern. I thought they
get worse, aren't they? That's going in the wrong
Man
direction.
City are getting better. Yeah, is it half full or half empty?
It's a tough one.
Anyway.
It's a tough one. Yeah. Do you want another clip? You have another listen
high time.
to Brian. This clip is Brian's on his phone, No, that was his first one. He was on the phone. Sorry. The second one is Brian. Oh yeah, he meets up.
Get it right.
He goes to these. Do I explain the Lessington and Furington thing? Is that worth going into, or?
Well, we don't know at this stage, do we, the true story of Lessington. I don't think it's not revealed at the point of where you've clipped this.
I don't know whether it's a spoiler though. Really, is it? If I say, I mean, basically, this is all about grammar, isn't it? This episode is all about.
I think we can't avoid revealing something. Yeah, but people will still enjoy the journey, arguably even more.
Yeah. But basically, the people of Lessington, should we say, enjoy a less sophisticated life than the people of Furington.
I'm going to be very careful because you'll just leap down my throat. We had an off-air conversation where apparently I committed the great sin of criticising the education system. So I had no idea that you're not allowed to do that.
To be fair, I mean, if you want to tell people what you said,
no, I'm not going to have that. I've only just calmed down. Anyway, so you do the social analysis because you're clearly the genius that had the good education.
No, it's just that I'm a nice person. I'm a Catholic. That's all that is. So
you calling me anyway.
So what did I say? So I've got to get this the right way around. So the people of Lessington have probably a less sophisticated life than the people of Furington, and Brian meets up with a resident of Lessington called Cheryl. Cheryl's a barmaid in actual fact, isn't she? I think
it's actually Cheryl.
Cheryl, right?
Sharol. I don't know whether that's probably a Bill Dare creation, is it?
I've heard people called. I knew somebody called Cheryl once. And I always thought it was Cheryl, and she was just trying to stand out from the crowd. I don't know. A bit like when I say my name's Shane, and people go, "Oh, okay, Sean," and you think, hang on, how does that work? But there you go. So briefly then, Brian, who has met up with Cheryl, and they seem to be getting on like house on fire, gets a very interesting offer from her.
Would you like to spend the night here, Brian?
Well, I don't have anywhere else to kip, so I graciously accept your invitation.
Since you're not from here, you might think I meant that as an offer of sex.
Oh. Well, I must admit, I assumed the light was on amber at the very least.
No one has sex in Lessington.
Oh.
Unless they want kids.
I would have thought the instant gratification of sensual pleasure would be...
No, all that flirting and game playing, and that's before it gets physical. I've heard that some people on the outside go on for 20 minutes.
Well, I have been known to be all done in 5.
Too much effort.
4?
Nah.
3?
I want you to tell me about stuff like poetry. You know a lot about it?
Yeah, I'm known as something of a literary type.
Give me a poem.
Well, let's see. Any poem?
You must know loads.
Oh, I do. I know quite a few.
Go on.
Okay, here's one. Come with me and be my love, and I'll compare thee to a summer's day. How do I love thee? Let me count the cannon to the right of us, and tigers burning bright, yet all at once, in a corner of some foreign field, rough winds do shake the host of golden daffodils that shall be forever England.
Now, be honest, Shane, could you name all the poems from which he's culled those lines?
No, it reminded me of one of my bad edits, the way he was doing it. No, I couldn't. No, could you?
Not all of them, but some of them. I mean, there's obviously I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, Wordsworth. And then there's Alfred Lord Tennyson's, whatever it is, Forward the 500, 600, 400.
Into the Valley of Death and all that.
All of that.
Yeah.
But so I quite enjoyed that.
I didn't understand that though, because I'd heard other episodes, and I know that the character is supposed to be quite well read, and I kind of thought, I didn't understand why he would mix them up, because I would have thought he would have known at least one poem all the way through.
Yeah. I don't think it rules out that as a possibility. But yes, I couldn't say what his motivation was unless, I don't know, he doesn't act it as if it's a mistake to begin with, that he just carries on covering the mistake, does he?
Nah. I thought he was going to do, when I first heard it, I thought he was going to say something like, yeah, I know a poem. I think I'm going to be sad. I think it's today. The girl that's driving me mad is going away. You know what I mean? And do something like, and do
or there was a young barber from Seville.
Nantucket.
No, well, yeah. We'll leave that one there for technical and artistic reasons. Yeah, okay, that's an oddity. Maybe Bill Dare just thought, I'll do it as a dare. Hey, I'll do it. No, never mind. He, of course, as you remarked on last week, he's the producer of Dead Ringers, isn't he, on Radio 4, the impersonations and topical show.
Do you know? I didn't realise. I did a bit of digging on Mr. Dare.
Mm.
He created. Do you remember the Mary Whitehouse Experience?
I worked on the telly, one edition of the TV
created
version.
that. That was his thing.
Lummy. That means he's not in the first flush of youth then.
Oh God, no. He created the Now Show. He created Dead Ringers. I mean,
I'm not sure I'm always glad he created the Now Show, but each to their own.
No, I was never. Do you know, I wasn't a big fan of the Mary Whitehouse Experience either. But yeah, it's funny you should say that. I don't know if I got a bit of a blind spot with Punt and Dennis. As a
yeah, well, you've never forgiven Mr. Dennis for Outnumbered, have you? I mean, Steve Punt, no time.
Yeah, Steve Punt, isn't he? And he was also in My Hero as well, wasn't he? Which is that terrible Ardlo Hanlon thing.
Which I should say, it sounds like it's so bad it's good, according to you and others who've reviewed it,
right?
Informally. I don't know whether we dare take up the precious remaining time of our lives slabbing something that knowingly is, by your accounts, not good. You never know, I might like it. I might even choose to like it just to miff you.
I think you're overestimating your power to miff me, but yeah, I mean, but go for it if you want to. It's your Sunday. I mean, sometimes, and it's funny, isn't it? Sometimes you can see it works for me with nostalgia. I think I've said this to you before. My wife goes mad because I'll sit there and watch episodes of George and Mildred, and on the buses. For people who don't know, there were comedies out the sort of 70s and
sophisticated.
80s. Sophisticated.
Literary.
They weren't, were they? But and I think it's probably 80-20, isn't it? It's 80% nostalgia, 20%. You can bear to sit through them, kind of thing. I do think nostalgia has a lot to play in those kind of things. So if you've not seen it the first time round, it's difficult to then go back. You don't understand. You go, well, I don't like it.
Right. I don't know about the nostalgia thing. Maybe I'm not being honest with myself, but I never sit down to watch something knowingly for the purpose of nostalgia.
I don't, but I do think that's why I watch it. Because if you look at On the Buses, for example, I mean, it's the whole thing is as shaky as hell, isn't it? The script's shaky, the acting's shaky,
sets are wobbly,
the sets are shaky, quite literally in places. Yeah, and you think, well, so there's got to be something. I'm not watching it for the buses.
Actually, I was.
Oh, maybe I
was intrigued by that. They had to have pipes, of course, taking the exhaust, because they did drive them into the studio for some sequences, I believe.
Yeah, you did.
Obviously, there's external stuff, but they had to have pipes running out. Otherwise, everyone on the crew would have died of carbon monoxide.
Well, no, they wouldn't, would they? Because they're diesel
or particulate. Engines. Oh, I knew. Yeah. You should live in flipping Moorington, whatever it's called. What's it called? Furington.
It's actually called Furington.
I think you'll find.
I bored you one with, didn't I? Didn't I tell you that Reg Varney, the principal character in
it was a classical actor or something?
No, he took his bus license. He actually passed his bus license.
Oh yeah. So that did you say it took several goes though?
No, I think he did it. I think he did it.
Because we were talking about Toby Jones who'd failed his to get his PSV
coach,
or whatever it was, coach
right.
license.
Yeah.
Right. Coming back to Bill Dare, is this wiki going mad and is it urban legend? But for me, the most interesting thing about him, if true, It says Bill Dare's dad was Peter Jones, narrator of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
See, I go back. You must remember him in the rag trade, Peter Jones.
I don't. I remember him being... Was he on the... I Know How You Love panel shows, especially when they got Sarah Milligan on them. Just a Minute. Or was he... He was a voice, a regular voice. Yeah, lovely voice.
He was. Yeah, great actor as well. Yeah, Peter
do you
Jones.
Do you think that's true? Obviously, got different surnames. Well, it could be he's taken his mum's surname, Dan Dare, Bill Dare. Had you read that anywhere?
No, I didn't see that. I didn't. But a great trivia fact, if it is true.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would. I don't know how you
Test
would stand that one up. I don't know.
No. It's not that straightforward. There's no point just looking at another website and saying, "Oh, 2 websites are saying it."
Yeah. And then they go, and that podcast said it as well, so it must be true.
Yeah, we're part of the problem now. Hashtag fake news.
Oh my God, we're trapped in an urban myth.
Oh, and an urban missive. Anyway, is it time for clip number 3 by any chance?
Yeah. He
says coppers here.
He gets into he gets into trouble, doesn't he? He gets into it's a fight over grammar, as you would expect. He goes to, I think they visit. I'm going to get this right. They visit Furington. And they go to an ironic bar that is this is.
You must have thought that's just like London.
Yes.
Surely.
I love the way he said. He goes into the pub and he said, I'll have a pint of cognitive dissonance. He said, is it any good? He said, will you convince yourself it is?
Boom, boom.
I loved it. But they go to Furington and they go into this bar, which is a kind of ironic Lessington themed pub, and get into a bit of a pub brawl, and then the police turn up.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Oh dear.
Fancy meeting you two again.
Officers.
We didn't start nothing.
Oh, so you admit you started something?
What?
And you, sir, do you admit to causing grievous harm to an infinitive?
Yes.
And using a pronoun without due care and attention?
Yes.
These are very serious barbarisms.
Point of order, they're not actually barbarisms, they're solecisms.
He's right.
I'd say they're barbarisms.
Solecisms.
Yep, solecisms.
Excuse us a minute while we look it up.
While the 2 coppers argued about solecisms and barbarisms, Cheryl and I snuck away. Or is it sneaked?
Snuck is more recent and more American. Furingtons would prefer sneaked, I think.
Well, since we were in Furington, we sneaked away.
Then you snuck into Lessington.
Cheryl did. I decided that good cheese, whiskey, and, well, other sensual pleasures were never going to be found in Nugget Town.
And Cheryl turned her back on high culture.
I can't blame her. Lessington was fake, yes, but at least it wasn't pretentious.
And point of information, they meant to say point of information where they said point of order. This show can make you even more pedantic than you might have been at the beginning of the show. Did you spot in the credits who one of the coppers was?
Yeah.
Or both of them? Well, they're 2 different people, obviously, but... Colin Holt, I was thinking of, because we slabbed his Carnival of
Monsters.
What was it? Thank you. Yeah, I wouldn't have spotted him though. Obviously, versatile and a very different character there. In fact, I didn't know which way round it was. Did you?
No, I'm not sure. I kind of thought he was the second one. But you,
I thought he might have been. Yeah.
I mean, he's so good with voices; it's difficult to tell, isn't it? Colin Holt is. I'm surprised we heard nothing more from him actually after his Carnival of Monsters. I would have thought he'd have been due something else by now, because it was quite well received, wasn't it? I think really. So I don't know, but
we think he's a talent. Clearly, the power of the Slab is not quite what we'd like to believe it is.
No. Not yet. Give it a couple of weeks. Yeah, give it a couple of weeks. I'm surprised you didn't like Mariah Gale. I thought she was very listenable and very believable as the daughter. I did kind of think that she kind of completed it, as it were, sort of thing. I'm
I
surprised.
don't think I said I disliked it. I think it might have been what you suspected it was, a directorial note to both of them, to be a bit flat. Not that the director would have used that term, yeah. It just was a bit too laid back.
The other thing is, I'm guessing as well, I mean, I don't know, this is just a guess, but you're kind of thinking, well, the conversation they're having in a hospital or a clinic or wherever he is, it's never really quite clear where he is. But so I suppose you think, well, you wouldn't get too animated, or you wouldn't be shouting and screaming, would you? I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into that. I don't really know, but
well, we don't hear. There's no sort of background hospital noises or anything like that. It's just a quiet setting, isn't it? Where they're talking.
Yeah. What did you? I mean, I've particularly thought of you during the pub scenes, because that was when the effects CDs were at their most prolific.
Well, actually, no, that wasn't the problem. What you thought, I would have found that a bit too heavy.
There's part of me that thinks, do they just bang on a standard BBC effects CD in those kind of situations, or would they go out and actually record some Atmos in a pub? Because
more likely the former, because budgets are tight in TV land, and that's where I have the direct experience, as you know, working dubbing years ago. And in those days, we were using effects discs. So, I mean, radio's on an even tighter budget, so I don't imagine they had the funds to go out, especially. Having said that, the people who record the effects go out to these real places, so you are getting genuine, for the most part, you're getting the real deal.
Yeah.
There are exceptions to that, but no, that didn't worry me so much. I didn't want to go down this route because you know how narky I can sound, and I'm sure they're very nice people, but there was one stage where it sounded like it was actually the lovely Cheryl, who you've already told us is played by Jo Bobin. She sounds like she's FaceTiming in her lines. This is when he goes back to her place. In fact, partly... Oh, no, when she says, come back to mine, they're not actually there. But in the next scene where they do go back to hers, did you pick up on that? Especially as you had headphones on.
What do you mean, the quality of it? Or
yeah, sure. And it was totally different quality to him. So you couldn't believe... I found it very hard to believe they were in the same room.
Right.
But, hey, that's why I live in Furington. And I've always got this fury.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. I must admit, I didn't know whether it was because this was, and we'll come to it a little later about where you can get hold of it. But this was from my private collection, the copy that we heard, and I just wonder whether it wasn't just a great, it wasn't a great recording.
No, well, let's blame you, because
I don't know whether it was that or not, but. Yeah, no, I didn't pick up on that. I mean, the fact that one side of the conversation wasn't as good as the other, I don't know. Very clever writing, though, isn't it? I mean, the whole idea that it all stems out of when people say they've had less of something when they mean few, like when they say there's less when it's fewer.
Yeah,
and which is, one of those pedantic things that people always correct if they are of a mind to note it. And you think to get a whole comedy programme of half an hour out of that and two worlds, and the way that those two worlds would develop as well. And what I always love about his writing is that he develops these two worlds, and he does this in a few episodes where you'd kind of think, oh, well, because... Lessington is like it is, and he's all you can get to eat is chicken nuggets, and you can have water roller, diet water roller, or just ordinary water roller, but you can't have real water.
It tastes like water, but not the real thing. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It's got sweetener in it or whatever. but this idea that's how that community then evolved, and you always think, oh well, so the other place must be
perfect
and idle. But then you then realise that has its own drawbacks as well. It's just really clever. You kind of think, he draws you into this kind of assumption and then just knocks it down, doesn't he? It's so clever the way he writes.
Which all good writing should be. It should be surprising, shouldn't it? Particularly, I think comedy relies very often on to get a laugh. You have to not see it coming. a lot of situations. Sometimes the reverse works. We just touched on the File Show, and that was all about what's coming.
Yes.
But it's that you enjoy the journey getting there. You know what the punchline is for any given character.
It's almost like pantomime, isn't it, in a way, because you can shout it out with them, and
Yeah.
it melt brilliant, those kind of things, or you can then take them with you and do them in everyday life. There's always part of me that thinks, I wonder whether this should have got a TV transfer, but then...
Well, no, I've written down the theatre of the mind, which is an old cliche, a hoary old cliche for hoary old radio types. I don't think it will work. And also, I mean, it's sort of related and unrelated, but for some reason, various reasons, this reminded me of Bleak Expectations, the Dickens send-up we slabbed some months ago.
Right.
And I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but for some reason there are some parallels in my head, and even the music, I think, triggered a recollection of that. That was ruined by TV. That was your phrase, and I was tiptoeing, but I think I have to agree with it ultimately.
Yeah.
Or at least it didn't fly on TV and should have done. But I wonder how much that failed because it was theatre of the mind. And that was very wordy as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you're right, and it was ruined up by TV. There was no two ways about it. But because they tried, I always think of the day to day from On the Hour, and you got On the Hour, and they pretty well did everything they did on the Hour, or they did new material, but of a similar kind of ilk on the day to day. And so they didn't go, okay, let's just invent this and do this completely differently, or let's have flying elephants that come in at half time or whatever. They were true to what the concept of what they were doing was. And there always seems to be this pull for people who are doing a TV translation when they do the transfer to say, oh, okay, let's do it in a completely different way, or And I think why would you do that? Surely it's enough just to transfer it to TV, isn't it? And add to it, maybe embellish it, but not. And you'll do it in a different way because it's TV as opposed to radio, so you'll have different challenges. The League of Gentlemen is another good example that they kind of, the core of it, the essence of it, came through to the TV. But then like you say, Bleak Expectation, you think, no, you just cocked it up completely.
Count Arthur Strong didn't survive that journey for me, from radio to TV.
No, completely different programme, wasn't it? I mean, fortunately for me, I liked both, and it was like kind of having a new programme with the Count Arthur Strong character in. But you're right, yeah, it was like what you kind of think, what were they thinking? You had this great, I mean, they had 7 radio series to go at.
Yeah. Yeah.
To pick the best of that, and tweak the best of that material, you could have made 3 great series. But
I think there can be a certain arrogance in the culture of TV, and it looks down its nose at radio very often.
Yeah,
that's not the full story. That's a kind of sketchy, headline-y version, but there is something of that, and I think they do trip themselves up on that.
Yeah,
they don't trust the original radio material, and they think, oh, we've got pictures, we've got to do something different.
Right.
When actually, Lessington is Morrington, as you would say.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I have to say, with the Count Arthur Strong transfer, I think was the ace in the hole was Rory. Is it Rory Kinnear? Roy Kinnear's lad, who I think he's a fab comedy actor and does what he does really well, kind of thing. So I think they kind of escaped with that, really, because of that, and because the Steve Delaney's Count Arthur Strong character is so strong, in that, no pun intended. But yeah, it's infuriating, isn't it, from a viewer's perspective? You kind of think, oh no, I was really looking forward to that, and you're doing it, you're doing James Bond wrong.
Is that a quote I should know?
It's an Alan Partridge, that is. Stop getting Bond wrong, I think is the original quote. Yeah, I mean, just before we go on to points and stuff like that, and what a points make, prizes. The concept as well, this idea that this kind of Alan Wicker type guy who's and for those of you who don't remember Alan Wicker, Google it.
it.
This seasoned travel presenter, and you don't know whether it's in his mind or, as episodes go on, there are things that make you think, oh, is it makes his daughter think, is it real or is it in his mind, or they're not really quite sure. I think it's all very clever. But the whole, what do you think of the concept? Did you like the concept itself?
Yes, and the way he's explaining it to his daughter, I think. So effectively, you're hearing things in a kind of flashback. That worked for me. Obviously, there's different ways of doing it. You could have narration, as it were, in real time, or different ways to skin a cat. But do you have any notion of why he would want to? Why Bill Dare chose to go with the father-daughter thing, or is that a daft question? He just did.
No, I don't know really. I mean, I don't even know why he chose the idea of the travel present. I mean, other than it's a play on Gulliver's Travels, then I've no idea why he would do that. But I just thought that, like you say, that made it for me as well. That like normally the flashback thing, you think, oh, it's a bit hackneyed or whatever. But in this instance, I think it kind of really worked. And really brought a lot to the table, because that even provided the laughs as well, didn't it? It wasn't just the laughs in the flashback. You were still getting character and plot points from the bits when they were talking to each other, and I kind of enjoyed those just as much. But no, I don't know. And like I say, you don't know. There's always in the back of your mind, you're thinking, as this poor bloke, is he suffering some kind of breakdown? And you all the way through, I think, you kind of, this is in the back of your mind thinking, well, is this is obviously pure fantasy now. And then there'll be some reference which will make his daughter think, oh, maybe it's not fantasy.
I don't think there's an answer to that, and it doesn't trouble me too much. You could say the whole thing's a dream, although that can tend to be a bit of a catch-all excuse for anything fictional.
Dallas ruined that, didn't they? Blooming Dallas.
They did. Bobby in the shower.
Bobby in the shower. Eh? I haven't had a Bobby in the shower for ages, I tell you.
I think we should move swiftly on. Having said that, you haven't had a shower for some time, according to your wife.
Fair enough, actually, that is true.
Good job, you're 170 miles away.
Last time I had a Bobby in the shower, the missus went mad.
I bet she did. She'd get that Bobby out of here.
She was straight up Tesco's for a bucket of rubber gloves.
She nearly called the grammar police. Right, so it must be that time for scores. Who wants to go first with the scores on the doors?
I never know who's allowed to go first or who has to go, or if it's you chose. I remember the one who smelt it, dealt it from school, but I don't know.
Actually, there was a line. I wasn't going to quote it, but since you mention it, when they're in the pub, this must have been Furington. The guy behind the bar says, "I'm a sommelier," and Cheryl says, "Well, you don't smell that bad." I could see you laughing at that point.
Yeah, it's like there was humour for all the family in there, wasn't there?
There was, yeah. Pick your style of humour; it'll be in there. What am I going to say? I find it's between 3.5 and 4, as it very often is, which is a nice problem to have in a way. They're both healthy scores. I feel I'd come from it from one direction. If I don't worry about the delivery, which, as I've said at length, is slightly flat, then that would take me to 4. If I factor in 3.5, and then I think, well, yeah, I'd be in different moods on different days when it would worry me. Got to choose, haven't I? I'm going to go 4 for the cleverness of the script. I think I did that for Bleak Expectations, but I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I'm going to give it See, I'm 4.5. That's my teeter.
Teeter away.
And see, I'm the opposite from you in this sense, because I kind of like it. The flatter, the better. Because when you're doing something that is kind of that outlandish and that sort of potentially farcical, I think the straighter you can play it. And that, so for me, I was kind of relieved that it wasn't all, the Cheryl character wasn't,
okay, you,
and all that kind of thing as well. What ruins it for me? Not a lot really. I've got to be honest with you. I mean, you can't. There is a kind of. what's the... It is very clever, and it is very
too clever?
Yeah, I do wonder at times, is it too well read? I mean, some of the references in there, like, I nearly blew Google up 4 times, like, because you think, what's that reference there? And sometimes I do wonder whether it is a bit too clever, but I don't know. I think because he balances the writing so well, and like you say, he's doing kind of lower brow gags the next minute. It kind of, because you don't feel like, I missed a thickie, I didn't get that reference. You kind of, it treats you gently as an audience, I think, really, in that sense. So I think,
make your mind up time.
A 4.5.
Yeah, on the side of generosity.
I did really like it. I mean, I must admit, I am actually going to go back and I'm going to re-listen to it. It's whetted my appetite to. It might be a bedtime listen for me now, I think.
You wet the bed with it. Wetted the bed. Never mind. No, it's bad enough you and your bobbies in the shower. I think we should move swiftly on. Except to say, there is a book of that title. So Brian Gulliver's Travels is out. Probably in paperback. I nearly turned into an announcer there. And the first series is available as a download. I think I'm trying to subtly change web pages. I found this at the website you got me onto, which is thecomedy.co.uk. I haven't got it in front of me, but
it's Audible.
Check that out.
I was going to say the downside is that it's available on Audible, which you have to have. You can actually, if you go to have a subscription, you can listen free for 30 days to Audible. But I have to say, and this, I don't get paid by Audible or anything like that, but I have got an Audible subscription, and it is the only subscription that I have because I just think it's fabulous. It's just awesome. You can get radio comedies and all sorts. So, series 1 of Brian Gulliver's Travels is available on Audible if you wanted to buy it there.
Did you tot up the score? So it is 8.5 out of 10.
8.5, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Brilliant. That's a good old healthy score. One of our finer ones. Right. Am I setting next week's homework? I think I am.
Yes, please.
Yes. I'm doing this purely so I can bore you with an anecdote from my past.
Oh, nice one.
And it is, because we've not had him in any of our shows, and that is a bit of an oversight. If I say to you he was once a Hoover salesman, door to door, any ideas?
Not a clue. Not a clue. Give me another clue. You got another clue?
I'll give you another clue. I think you will get him from this one. Or there's more chance. He won New Faces 1 week.
Les Dawson.
The very same.
Les Dawson. I wasn't thinking that era. That's why I didn't get that one. But yeah, Les Dawson. Yeah, he was a I don't know. Was he Hoover or just a vacuum salesman? I can't remember.
Well, you see, once again, you prove that you're domiciled in Furington because I was using Hoover with a small h, which is admissible, I believe. Gosh, I didn't think I'd be out pedantized. There isn't such a word, don't correct me. By you. I thought I was beyond that as an utter pedant. Anyway, now here's a funny thing. The series is called Listen to Les. It's on our old friend and Shane's favourite app, which is BBC Sounds, or you can get it via bbc.co.uk in the UK. And depending on copyright, it may be on bbc.com outside the UK. Listen to Les is the series. I've picked the one that will give us the largest window at the time we're speaking. So 3 weeks or so, not quite 3 weeks by the time this podcast drops. But hey, better than no time at all. But the title is From 1811-1979. Because it hasn't got an episode title, just the date of first transmission. So 18th of November, 1979, but which was the year? So that should be a bit of fun.
And welcome to Popmaster. Nice one. Okay, listen to Les. I'm looking forward to that. Was that got Roy Barraclough in it as well?
I don't know. I don't think so, no.
Maybe before. I'll have to ask my wife, actually, before next week's podcast then, and see if she's got any Les Dawson anecdotes, because she worked with him as well.
Oh, right. If you told me before, I'd managed to forget. Don't let me forget one involving rehearsal. Just say rehearsal.
Okay.
Super. Right. Let us mention anti-social media. We are at Comedy Slab on the Twitters, and we are also at Comedy Slab on Facebook. So if you could like the latter page and follow us on Twitter, and we throw in the odd gag or a bit of information you might be interested in. Hey, did you see Did you see who liked one of our tweets this week?
No, who's that?
No less a talent than Daisy Haggard liked the tweet. Of course it's about her, but that's fine. Self-publicity. If it disappears and she changes her mind, then she won't have been impressed having gone back to the show. But actually we were very impressed by her show, weren't we?
Yeah, I quite like her, actually. I think she's a good actress as well as being comedic, which is quite nice. I told you about Simon Evans, didn't I, as well? He liked one of ours.
So if we're liked by that roster of comedy talent and others besides, just think how much you're like following us at Comedy Slab. And over to you for the podcast platforms.
Yeah, don't forget we're available on Spreaker and Stitcher and Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio and Spotify, just basically all the places that you can normally get your podcast from. You should be able to get us there. And if you manage to subscribe as well, obviously, but if you subscribe as well, then you know and get to find out when the next episode drops. It'll give you a shout, give you a nudge in the right direction so you can hear us.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you want that nudge? And personal recommendation would be hugely appreciated. So if you've enjoyed the show, do tell your friends and family, local vicar, imams, politicians, because we know how much you love those. And just get the word out there. And a nice, generous star rating on iTunes / Apple Podcasts would be lovely too.
So from us, that's it for another episode. Thank you very much for listening and for being with us. I'm off to the train station.
To train?
No, I thought you might say railway station, because I used to work with somebody who that was their pet pedantic hate. Whenever people would say, I'm off to the train station, they go, no, you mean the railway station. But although apparently they've changed it now, haven't they? So either will do. So that's a bit of a red herring pedantic.
Okay. And I got told off by a teacher once for saying I posted a letter in the post box, and she said, I think you mean the pillar box. So God. I know that's why I turned out the way I did. So I posted her something not very nice in the pillar post box. On which note, we'll say farewell. See you next time.